Hammer for UnREAL Season 2, Episode 8, Fugitive, and I was really worried about this episode, I have to say. I mean, I wasn't even going to watch it. I honestly was going to stop watching because I just didn't know if they were going to be able to come back from that horrible, cliched storyline they set up last week. I really didn't know what they were thinking. Well, I kind of get what they were thinking. Sarah Gertrude Shapiro even said she kind of wanted to do, what Rachel did and tell this story. But again, it's not her story to tell, and you definitely realize that. And here's my thing that I think they were really trying to do, in that storyline. Like I said, I think they were really trying to, stir up some drama, but it just didn't really work in the way they wanted it to. And I really was worried that this episode, was going to be really boring and that there wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to come back as well. And I have to say, did this episode finally win me over? To an extent, yes. I thought this episode was much better than last week. It had a lot more stuff that I really love in UnREAL. And I have to say right off the bat, a lot of people are talking about how they don't talk about Romeo and the shooting. Why? I think they want to forget it happened. I mean, they're not forgetting that it happened, but I think the reason they didn't talk about Romeo and the shooting is because this show simply is not the show to do it. That's why I was upset. I was not upset because they didn't show Romeo. I was upset because they did this in the first place. This is not at all the show to tackle a story like police brutality, and we very well see that in this episode. We see how it's affected the characters, we see the effect it's had on them, and that's something I thought was definitely very well handled, is the way they show the effect, and also kind of like the punishment that many of the characters go through, but it also was kind of a fun episode. There were some really fun moments here, and we're really getting close to that finale, and I have to say, this was a really great episode. I really enjoyed it overall. I thought it was much better than last week's. Really had some great scenes in here, but let's just get into this episode because a lot of the stuff that I wasn't okay with, they suddenly got me on board with everything in this episode, but let's just get into it because there really is a lot to talk about. So, right away, we take a time jump. It's actually a few weeks after the shooting, which I thought was a cool choice the way they did that. And the reason I think they did that is because, again, us not seeing the show would be boring. We expect to see Everlasting, and for us to not see Everlasting would be boring. I mean, they even had that episode 7 last year. That was a lot more of them trying to cover up things, but this was a lot different because, Rachel's not there. And Quinn's telling the staff that she knows it's been a hard time for everyone after the ridiculous clip show they had to air last week. Rumors are flying online, but all the public knows is that there was some sort of police incident, and Jay asks if that's what they're calling it. Quinn says she doesn't like this any more than he does, but they're not in the news business, they're in the boobs business. And Jay asks about Rachel. Quinn says she's fine, and we see very quickly Rachel is definitely not fine. She's in a mental institution in a state of exhaustion and fuzziness, and she sees Olive, her mother, talking to someone, but unsure of who that individual is that she's talking to. So I thought there was definitely a good scene. There are a lot of great scenes, psychologically with Rachel in this episode I really did love, but Quinn then tells everyone that she's the showrunner now, and she doesn't want to hear anything about it, so they need to keep loose lips, get waterboarded, and their bodies get dumped in the desert because they're going to have serious eyeballs on them this week, and she wants said eyeballs to be focused on what they do best, which of course is romance. That's what she wants, and that's something that this season has been missing, is that romance. She wants it, and she says they're going to take their love stories and shove it down their throats till they choke, and they all leave except for Jay and Madison, and I gotta say, I really missed a lot of this season. I mean, we haven't had a lot of Quinn just in people's ears, demanding them what to do. I mean, we've had that sort of, but just not in the way that Quinn was last season. She hasn't had that power that she did last season, and finally she does, and it's honestly great to see her back as the showrunner. I like seeing that. Even though Rachel is the showrunner, she just can't be the showrunner, and neither can Coleman, and you definitely see that here. And if anything, again, it shows that Coleman definitely cannot be trusted, and basically, Jay Madison tells her that the girls are asking about Darius. They're worried. They don't know what to tell them. Quinn says not to say a damn thing. He's going to come back, take them on a helicopter ride in San Francisco. Dinner, dancing, and most importantly, romance. Tells them to go, make sure their date is perfect. So she's thinking that everything's going to be fine. They're going to be able to go back to it. But then they have to realize that there are going to be some obstacles along the way, as we see in this episode. So Coleman's still there, we find out. He asks if she's going to leave Rachel locked up in the loony bin. She says her mother is the devil, so if Rachel called her, things must be pretty bad. And something of this episode is it just shows how well Quinn knows Rachel and how well Coleman doesn't know Rachel. Coleman thinks he knows Rachel, but Quinn knows Rachel. Quinn knows everything that makes Rachel crack. Quinn knows everything that, affects Rachel, and she knows this unhinged side of Rachel. She's had to deal with it for 5 years now, and basically, says Rachel Kirk called her. She says that he asked if he's going to leave her in there. She says after what she did and what she had to do for her to make this go away, maybe she could use a little time off. And honestly, I'm with Quinn. I think the best thing to do is for Rachel to stay away from Everlasting right now, because she's just a ticking time bomb, and she's just not someone that should be running the show. And he says for a week she wouldn't just pick up a phone, and she says that he's been here for 2 months, and Rachel's issues go way back, so he's an expert on absolutely nothing, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he says he's not saying that. She asks why his lips are still moving. She says his career as a television producer is over. He had a chance and blew it and doesn't have a job there anymore. She says Gary said that he got a paycheck in an office until his contract runs out, but that's all he's gonna get. And I like the way she's putting him in his place, saying, look, you may think you know Rachel, but you really don't, and I definitely really like that dynamic between those two. And then we get a twist that I was expecting. I really was expecting this, but I'm glad we finally got the answer here. We see Yael's on a computer. Coleman comes in, obviously wants to know what she's doing, and long story short, we do find out that she's in fact a reporter. She's a reporter for the show called Reality TV Kills. And I saw this coming. I think we pretty much all saw this coming. From the second that Yael started to get information on Coleman and ask him all these questions, I'm like, either this girl's a big flirt and she just, wants to flirt with every guy, or she's a reporter, and it turns out that she is a reporter. And I honestly really like this twist, because it really puts her in a very interesting direction. He asks if she's kidding, she says she's uncovered some explosive stuff, talks about Mary, she says it was a murder. He asks who her source is, she says she has Jeremy on tapes. And now, why you go to Jeremy, I don't know. That's the one thing I don't understand, is why'd she go to Jeremy? And also, if you're a reporter, don't just blow up your entire plan to someone. I mean, it's pretty bad reporter, Yael, I have to say. She says she just saw Romeo shooting. He asks her what she means. She says if he's going to turn her in, she'll turn him in too, unless he wants to work together. She actually wants them to team up. She says that her editor says if she wins this thing, her piece will be unstoppable, and he can't deny there's a huge story right here. And he says that she needs to get out of there. She says they have to do something. This place, what they do, it will blow his mind, and she knows a lot. There's a lot of stuff that he doesn't know, and I definitely really did like seeing that. So Chantel, Tiffany, and Jameson, they're in hammocks trying to keep themselves occupied. Jameson's focused on Romeo getting shot. She says they know cops get a bad rep, and no one really seems to care, very much. They kind of just want to move on, and because, again, they don't really know the half of it. And Quinn tells them to get up. She wants them shaped, saddled, and ready to ride because Everlasting's back in business. Jameson asks if she's serious. I have to say, we got a lot more with Jameson here, but we still know nothing about her except that she's a police officer. Absolutely nothing. And that's something that kind of disappointed me, is that I wanted to get a little bit more insight into Jameson's character, and we just didn't. And Quinn says that as Cancer, there's a big, she says Cancer, there's a big date tonight with Darius in the city. Jameson asks if it's as if nothing happened, and asks how people are reacting about what about the footage, and she says they gave all the footage to the police. It's a PR nightmare for them, and the police, no one wants to getting out, so it's not going to, and they're going to make sure it doesn't. And Jameson's not okay with this. She says this doesn't sit right with her. And Quinn says that the thing that doesn't sit right with her is a non-disclosure agreement that she did for the show, and she basically tells him to get back in the game, put something on that would make men want to have sex with them. She then goes looking for Yael, and then finds Booth there. And naturally, she asks him what he's doing here, and he says that considering she hasn't answered his calls in a week, she says she's been a little busy. He says, or avoiding him, he says he knows staying in the center for progeny may be a little upsetting. She says that she has been very deep into it, and it's not very easy putting this all back together after a shooting. He says they're doing so well, why pretend? She tells him to sit down, says that they wanted kids, they would have already had them by now, and they didn't, and it's okay. Not everyone needs to. Remember, he wants kids. She's not really into the idea. She kind of just is saying, look, if I don't want kids, then it's fine, no one needs to have kids. And she talks about how the show is her baby and the people are her kids, and he asks if she means Rachel, and we get this really good scene where he talks about how, he used to say that his companies were his children, but the truth is that they're not. And he says he doesn't want to get any more attached. She can't see that kind of future for them, and I really like where this is going. I mean, even though these two have known each other for, a couple of weeks, I think it definitely does show that, Quinn has someone that genuinely cares about her, and I think that's really what they're trying to show with this whole thing. So, Chet goes to her, she asks what he wants, he says they have to talk, he says he went to the hospital, Darius wasn't there, he checked himself out, and he said that he's gone. She asks how she's supposed to make another episode of Everlasting without a suitor. She says they have to change the date, tells Booth that he needs to leave, tells Chet to find her suitor, and we see Darius is in a diner with a cane, and he's there to meet Ruby, which honestly, I'm not surprised about, because as we know, Darius has been wanting to get away from the show for a while, and we know the only girl he truly cared about and actually fell in love with was Ruby. And Basically, you know, she says that he has 5 minutes to tell her what he wants, and you can tell she really doesn't want much to do with him, which is understandable after what he did with her father and whatnot. And Coleman's in a mental institution, tells Rachel to wake up. She asks what he's doing. She doesn't want him to see her like this. He says he's been trying to see her the entire week, but Olive wouldn't let her, and asks how she feels, and she asks where she is, and he says that she's outside talking to the doctors. He asks what she's on. She says a lot of stuff. He says this is not right. They have to get her out of there. And she says if she can't leave, she has to stay. He asks why. She says because of the stuff she did with Romeo and Darius. He tells her that they're going to be fine. Asks what Olive said. And Olive comes in, says Rachel is exactly where she needs to be. The question is why he's there. And he says he just came to check on Rachel and make sure that she's doing okay. But it doesn't seem like she is, thanks to her. She says Rachel called her. This is her choice. He says he has spent every second of the last few weeks with her. He says he knows she's not crazy, and she asks how he knows. He says if she was, then he wouldn't be in love with her, because he knows that he is in love with her, but he is. And again, it's a little bit fast, definitely. I don't fully believe that these two are in love, and I don't think Rachel reciprocates the same feelings that Coleman feels. And Rachel says she wants to go home, but not here. This hasn't been her home since she was 12 years old. Tells Coleman that she loves him, tells him to take her home, and really good scene, really like the way that was done. So then we get to Everlasting, where Graham's introducing the episode. He's calling it Everlasting Exile in Paradise, and we find out that because Darius isn't there, the girls are actually going to have to vote out each other, because the show has to go on. I heard a lot of people say it didn't make sense, but think about it, the show has to go on. They have to get rid of someone, so the girls are going to vote out each other with an immunity challenge, and the winner of which is going to get to spend an overnight date with Darius. And Quinn asks where he is. Madison says they don't know. Quinn comments her for the title. Madison says she's really good with the big ideas. Quinn tells her to stop, and I really just love this side of Madison we've been getting all season. We see it a lot in this episode, and I really am enjoying that. So Chet goes to her, and she asks what he wants. He asks about her and Booth and the baby. She says she used to say being a mother is not who she is. She used to make fun of mom, sell her own saggy palm. She says she doesn't, just because she didn't want his disease-damaged sperm, doesn't mean she doesn't want a kid. And I think a lot of people are saying this is character assassination, but I don't see it that way. I see this more as Quinn really wanting to, you know, she's really wanting to move on. She wants to have an actual future, and she thinks that she could actually have a future with a Booth, and she wants to try it. And I think that's something that's very interesting that we saw here. And honestly, I think it's a good thing that Quinn kind of wants to have this baby, even though it seems really fast. You can tell why Booth wants her to do this. You know, he wants to have a life outside of this, and I think she wants one as well. So he talks about how, you know, he broke a deal with Tiffany and her father. He's going to be a league owner. That's like the Illuminati. And basically says that she needs tension, competition, so she might need to throw Chantal into play. And besides, Booth really likes her and bet $60K to get her to win. And she says that she told him to find Darius, who tells Ruby she told him to be a better version of himself, and he didn't think he could be. He was too chicken shit to try. And then when he saw Romeo get shot, because of him, he knew he didn't have a choice anymore. He had to be that guy, and that guy has to be with her. He says he's done with the show, the whole circus. He just wants to be with her. She asked him if he knows what it looks like. She told him that she loved him on national TV. He cut her, dropped her like a hot rock, and does he know what and she doesn't care, you know, she's saying, look, you still cut me, you did all this stuff to me, and you made me look like a sassy, stuck-up bitch. He says he never said any of that. She really wants nothing to do with him. I mean, it's understandable after what he did. He basically destroyed a lot of her reputation, and Jay, we see, comes, you know, she said that she called him, he texted her and says she called him back. Darius asks if she's going to let him go back in that hellhole. She said she's not letting him do anything. She said she has to go, he can do what he wants, walks out, and yeah, Ruby's not his puppet. He needs to understand that Ruby's not his puppet. She's not going to do everything he tells her to do. Ruby's just not like that. She's not that easily convincing, and maybe if this was a different girl, I'd say, okay, maybe, but this, you know, Ruby's not like the other girls. She's not as convincing. She's not as easily to, you know, fool, and you just can't fool her. You really don't. You know, she knows he definitely has something up his sleeve, and she's not falling for 1 second. So all the girls get ready. They're not enjoying how much the show has changed. Tiffany goes to Chet, says they have a deal that they were getting somewhere with Darius, and now they can vote her off, and they hate her. He says they'll figure it out when Darius gets back. She asks where he is. He says to not worry about him. She'll win the immunity. He promises, and meanwhile, Chantal goes to Madison and says the girls have seeing how well her and Darius have bonded, and she's very worried that they're gonna vote her out. And Madison says that he did get her fiance's ashes in her mouth, but she totally sees it. Chantal asks what she's gonna do about it. Does she want to talk to Darius right now? Quinn goes to her, tells her to take a breath. She says she has every right to be upset, but there's not gonna be a problem with the immunity because she likes her. She's a perfect match for Darius, and Tiffany is not the only one who can be a football princess or a queen. Chantal says finally someone gets her. Quinn says she does too, and again, she really is only doing it for Booth, but you can tell she really is pushing for her to win. And that's the kind of stuff I want to see here. I want to see this, like, cutthroat stuff where they're pushing for a certain person to win. They're trying to do everything to get them to win. I mean, I just like seeing how rigged the show is, and that's something I think works very well here. So, Jay gives Darius this really good pep talk where he wants him to come back to the show, and he says it would be the smartest thing he could do for himself. He has to understand he will have his back. Rachel, Quinn, and Coleman are the ones that got him shot. He will be with him every step of the way. Darius tells him to give it up, even though he may be a brother. He's still working for the machine, and Darius says the way he's been playing it has been working against the machine. He needs to make the machine work for him, and if he can't really play anymore, then he has to come back. He has no other choice, and if he even wants a shot at some kind of life after football, he needs to finish the show, because walking away with the show means he's nothing, and tells him to marry Tiffany, and he said America will swoon, and if he plays his cards right, he could even become the first black owner of a pro football team. He needs to think about his family and do what he could do for them. He says he sounds like Romeo, as if he's okay marrying a pretty white girl. He says he likes Tiffany. He'd feel bad about using her. Jay says a girl like that does not compete for a male national TV without a reason. It is what it is. Doesn't mean she doesn't like him. He just like he likes her. And he says to stop thinking that this is his birthday party and they're all his friends, because they're not, and he needs to stop caring about them so much. He's using Tiffany to get what he wants. Everybody wins, and I really get what he's trying to say. The best thing to do is to come back. He needs to move on from all this and try to have a life, because remember, he wants to get that sportcast deal, and the best way to do that is to be with Tiffany, and I really like the way that Jay's convincing him. And I also really like the way that Jay's can become the moral compass of the show. I mean, it's kind of unexpected, but I like the way we've seen that. I think it really does suit his character very well. So, on Everlasting, Graham introduces the immunity challenge and how it'll work. Chuck then gives Tiffany the answers to the questions, and she should memorize them. They're good. She asks if he stole the questions. He says he didn't steal them. He wrote them. Coleman brings Rachel back to his office. She says she doesn't want anyone to see her there. She feels that they should just go back to his house instead. He says he explained to her in the car, tells her to sit down, and then tells her that he was saying they have a very tiny window there to get their story out, their version of what happened, the whole pullover thing, and just wants her on camera. He says he feels Quinn burying all the footage is wrong. Rachel says that's not what happened. He says this is her story. They've been trying to tell them this for years. This is what they've been waiting. This is the story they've been waiting to tell. He needs her on camera vlogging her through the whole thing. She asks if this is why he brought her out of the hospital. He says he just doesn't want them to miss their moment, and I'm willing to test that. I really think he just brought her back just to get her on camera, honestly. I don't think Coleman cares about her nearly as much as we think he does, and I think we definitely see that here. So I thought it definitely was very interesting the way we saw that. And again, like I said, I'm really not liking Coleman out of this episode. But I don't think we're supposed to. I think we're supposed to think that Coleman's definitely involved in something that we don't know about, and we're definitely not supposed to like him for it. So on Everlasting, the challenge then starts. Tiffany and Chantal get most of the answers right until Tiffany gets one wrong, because Quinn gave a question that wasn't on the list, and Quinn says that Chantal should win. He asks who she is, and because Chet really doesn't know who she is anymore, the fact she wants Chantal to win. If you remember, Rachel was the one that said Chantal should win, and Quinn was against it, and now Quinn kind of wants her to win, which is interesting, the way that Quinn is changing her opinion with that. In fact, she's not even calling her the Black Wifey anymore, if you realize. But back to Coleman. Coleman puts Rachel on camera talking about the police, and this isn't the first time they haven't called them. They do it all the time, talk about last season with Anna, and it's a really nice scene. She talks about all the things they've gone through and how the police, they call them all the time. Coleman asks about Mary. Rachel says the police should have come early for her when the ex showed up, and he asks what she means. She says it might have been a better idea they didn't call them, because if they came during, he asked if there was something they didn't want them to know. She says she didn't even know about it till it happened. He asked if it was anything how she jumped, and she says that not that part. He says she can tell him anything. She says she can't live this anymore. Admits that they killed her, and just a really good scene. Shiri Appleby really did kill it in this episode, I have to say. She's been killing it all season, but really good here. On Everlasting, Graham declares Chantal as the winner, and because of that, she's safe from elimination, gets to go share a night with Darius in a Palathra, which the other girls will build. Jameson says this is bullshit. Tiffany asks if they get gloves. Chantal thanks them for building it for her, gives them instructions. I mean, she is as stuck up as you can imagine, and Madison goes to Yael, tells her and Chantal that as both of her girls, she wants them to form an alliance, and Chantal says she has immunity. Why would she do that? Madison says to give her to Tiffany. They both know that she's a front runner. This is their chance to send her home. Quinn tells Chet that Madison's trying to out Rachel, and very much she's trying to do that. And He says she doesn't want to let Tiffany go. Derry's putting a ring on that would really be absolute ratings bonanza. And Quinn says that that is everlasting one-on-one and declares Tiffany and Chantal will be the final two. And he says, great minds think alike. That's why they'll be such a great team. She tells him to stop because it's over and they're done. He says he's just disappointed in seeing the moment she's become a mom and says he knows Booth is a lucky guy. And he knows she's happy and she tells him Rachel's mom is out front, runs out, tells him to go save Tiffany. And I love the way that Quinn took charge here. I absolutely love this. Jay comes back. Chad asks if he found Darius. He says sort of. Chad asks if they have a suitor or not. Jay says he made a very convincing argument. They'll see if it actually works. But like I said, I love this side of Quinn. When she goes into full-on, just like mama bear mode, trying to protect her cub that's like Rachel, I absolutely love the way this was done. She goes to Olive, who says she's there to bring Rachel back to the hospital. She's the definition to a threat to herself and others. She knows she got a man shot. She hated to get her back to the place that's toxic and assumes Quinn was on board with it, her leaving, and Quinn says this place is like Little House on the Prairie compared to what happened at her own place. She asks what happened between them. She says the fact is that she treats her own daughter is bizarre. Yeah, it really is. I mean, who that's a therapist treats their own daughter? It's very strange she does that, not to mention unethical. Olive says she's more qualified to treat Rachel more than anyone. Quinn says she's not talking about that. She's talking about her duty as a mother. And she asks what she knows about being a mother. Tells Rachel is her daughter and not Quinn's. And really, in many ways, she is very much a second mother to Rachel. She knows how Rachel thinks. Rachel's there so much that she just knows Rachel very well. And Jay talks to Jameson and Tiffany, tells them to get together, find information, because he knows of Madison's plans. Jameson says she's right there with them. She's voting her off the show because once she's gone, her producer will actually have time to produce her. And Jay says to not take it out because she's pissed at him. She says it's 3 against 1. And basically, they're planning on voting Tiffany out. That's one of the big parts we see here. They're planning on voting her out, but we know that's probably not going to happen. So Coleman then asks Rachel how she could even come back to work after what happened. She says it honestly feels so good to say it out loud. Quinn opens the door, asks what they're doing in there. Rachel says that Rachel can't believe Olive is back. She says she didn't even know she was here. Quinn says she got rid of her and she can get rid of her and tells her what she needs. Rachel says to get off of her. They leave. Quinn asks Coleman what he's doing, pointing the camera at Rachel. Now, Rachel is just as damaged in this episode, definitely. But she's so drugged up that she doesn't have that emotion to her like we see. I mean, it's honestly kind of scary. She's in a very vegetative, emotionless state, we definitely see. And Rachel, he says therapeutic. They're actually giving her a chance to talk about what happened with Darius around her. Quinn says it's bullshit. The truth incriminates her. Having her admit all of that on camera makes her a liability. It just gets him off the hook, and she feels that's all he cares about. He admits he does love Rachel, but I don't really think that's true. And he says police brutality is a real story, but Quinn says it's not this story, and it's not. This is not their story to tell. This is a romantic reality show, and it's not a show about police brutality. Coleman's just gone completely off the rails, and I think that's definitely something we're seeing here. And she basically talks about how, unless his feelings for Rachel are less pure than what she imagined, he says he loves her, he just wants to protect her, and she says he better. And again, I love that defensive side Quinn, her just being like, you better protect her. Like, you better protect my second daughter. I really did love that. Rachel's then with Olive, the doctor, who says he's there to help if she's really capable. Rachel asks if Olive is trying to convince her she's not, asks what if she is. She asks if she's trying to get him to put her on some 72-hour hold. She realizes he's there to make sure she's capable of taking care of herself. He says it was a very sudden departure, and she says she can totally understand from his point of view, but she's fine. He's just in the middle of this long-standing family dispute between her and Olive. He asks if it's because she gets the proper treatment. She says she gets it, but there's another core issue that is not being addressed, and he asks what she thinks it is, asks if she'd like to talk about it. She says she would. Olive says she's absolutely right. This is family manner, and she'd hate to bring him into it. She'll give him a call, let him know how she's doing. He asks if she's sure. She says she is. Chet then tells, and basically, we don't know what they're talking about. We know that definitely something happened with Rachel, and that's something I really love. They know something happened, but we just don't know what it is yet. And we found a little bit later. Jen and Tiffany then say that they can still make something happen without Darius. She can be the suitress in her own show. She asks if he'd do that for her if he really wanted her and on her dad's team. He says he really doesn't if he had a reason. And she realizes that he just did it for Quinn and that he did out of the goodness of his heart. And realizing this, she kisses him. He asks where that came from. She says he knows she has major daddy issues. And Quinn asks and basically proceeds to make out with him. Quinn asks where Tiffany is. She says she has to go. And it seemed like those two were going to have sex. Chet probably would have given in to her, which is very interesting that we saw that. And I kind of like this interesting, kind of disgusting relation between these two. I mean, it shows that Tiffany is willing to get whatever she wants through blackmail. She definitely is going to do that. So Olive then asks Rachel what she's doing, says there's a reason why she kept what happened private. Rachel asked if it was because she could protect her practice. Olive said that it was so she could protect her, send her to a good school, give her life, let her grow up to be the shiny penny she really is. And Rachel says that she's not that person. She hasn't been since the day it happened. And Rachel asks if she just wants her to pretend it never happened, and Olive says that no one will love her. If they ever find out, they'll run away. No one wants to deal with that kind of damage. Coleman comes in, asks how she's doing. He says the stuff he told her about Mary, and she says she needs to tell him something that has nothing to do with the show. It's about her and Olive, and she just needs to talk to someone about it. And we finally realize what it is that happened here. We realize that what happened is, she thinks she's helping her with the drugs. Rachel says she believes they'll shut her up about the fact that she was raped by one of her patients at her house when she was 12, and she blamed her because she was protecting her practice and didn't want to say anything to anyone ever, so that she said she would treat herself. So that's how this whole thing started with them, and all the diagnosing and all the pills, and probably Rachel's depression in general started from that. The fact that her mother didn't take her side and just wanted to help her, and obviously he hugs her, but you just don't really know if he's on her side, just the way he's treating her. And on Everlasting, the women then vote. Seems like Tiffany's going to be the one voted out, and then at the last second, we see Darius still is great. We see Darius comes out of nowhere, says she's not going anywhere, decides to keep Tiffany and cut Jameson, as well as not going on the date with Chantal, tells everyone from now on that they will do this his way or no way. She needs to understand that and agrees to go on the date with Tiffany. And the fact that he just took charge of that, literally says in the camera, we're doing this my way or no way at all. Quinn goes out, says she doesn't think she could have predicted his return to any better. She asks him what he's doing. He picked Tiffany, but they need to have an understanding. He says they don't need to have anything. If he ever sees Rachel again, says he's only listening to Jay. He's the one who gave him the call to come back. So if she wants to talk to him, she'll go through hell, and says the shooting better never get on camera. She tells him that he's her new number 2, and asks how that feels. He says it's fine for now. I also love seeing Madison just brag about the fact that her contestants might be the only ones left. Thought that was definitely really fun. The date then takes place between Tiffany and Darius. She thanks him for saving her. He makes out with her, tells her to stop. He's done talking. This is what they both want. They proceed to have sex. Chet then watches, knowing this wasn't really any of his doing, and he feels bad because he really wanted to do this for Quinn. I don't think it's because of the whole Tiffany thing. I think he really wanted to do this for Quinn. He really wanted to prove to her, and in the end, he didn't. It was Jay that did it, and he kind of feels like he messed up, and I honestly kind of feel bad for him here. Really, he wanted to prove to her, and definitely I kind of felt bad there. So Quinn goes to the booth, says he got there fast, says he didn't think that she'd be calling him at this hour with bad news, but he just heard Darius is with Tiffany, says he might lose $50K, says it's not over yet, then talks about the baby, says she wonders if it's too late. She can. He says they can achieve whatever they set their minds to. The Masters of the Universe, God's looking down from Mount Olympus, the laws of nature simply don't apply, and basically it seems like they are going to have this baby. Even if she can't do it, they're going to at least try, and I like seeing that. So Coleman's in bed with Rachel, then goes to Yael, thanks her for meeting him there. He says he just heard some new information and feels he may be onto something, asks what else she has, and that is the way the episode ends. It seems those two are working together, but that is the way the episode ends, and let's get into this episode overall. Here's the thing with this episode for me. What I really liked about it is that they were able to move on. They didn't focus 100% on this police brutality stuff. Yes, we could have conversations about police brutality, and yes, we could have had conversations about Romeo and everything, but that's not what the show is about, truthfully. The show is supposed to be about lies and deceit and just how, how scripted reality TV can be and how reality is not at all reality. That's really what this show is all about to its core. And that's something that I really loved about this episode, that we finally realized that. And here's the thing, Sarah Gertrude Shapiro, like I said, really does seem like she's trying to get the show back on track. I'll talk about that when we get to the finale. But I definitely thought this was definitely closer to what I want the show to be. I thought there was some really good stuff here. Coleman is definitely not to be trusted, though. He's going to work with Yael. I don't really know what's going to happen here. And here's the thing, as we know, Quinn is planning to have Tiffany and Chantal be the final two. With Yael as a reporter, I think anything can really go anyway, really. I mean, Yael will make sure something happens the way she wants it to. So I very much feel like Yael is going to find a way to keep herself in the game. And in the show, definitely. I think it definitely is going to happen. We'll have to see the way that works out. But I definitely feel this is not going to be the last we're going to see of her next week. She's a main character. I'm pretty sure she's going to have some sort of impact before the season happens. Do I think she's going to expose them? She definitely has potential to. So I definitely think that could happen. And I don't really know what's going to happen there. That's going to be very interesting. As far as Chet and Tiffany, I honestly felt bad for Chet. He really wanted to prove to Quinn what he could do, but he couldn't prove to her. So I was really hoping that he would be able to prove to her, and he, in the end, didn't. And then as far as Rachel and her mother, I mean, it's really crazy what we found out there, but I do like that Coleman tried to help her. I thought that definitely was very well done. Really good stuff there. But again, I just can't trust Coleman after that whole thing with Yael. After that, how can you really trust the guy? I mean, he's working with a reporter over her, and I definitely don't think that, he's someone that can be trusted. But I guess the only other thing, like I said, I would have wanted to know more about Jameson. I get why he voted her out. You know, we just didn't know much about her, and I just kind of want to know more about her character. But I guess the only other thing to talk about really is Booth and Quinn. I like that they are going to try to have this baby. I'm looking forward to seeing the way that that all goes down. But overall, guys, I'm not what you guys thought of this episode. For me, this episode won me back over. This was much more closer to what I want Unreal to be. It was very fun. I really enjoyed it overall. Yes, it had some good conversation about police brutality, but overall, I definitely really did enjoy it. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for a movie review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.